My name is Stacey Megginson, personal trainer, wellness coach. My specialty is weight loss. And here we're with Dr. Lasalle, professor of psychology, 20 years experience teaching psychology and coaching people with stress management. Today we're actually going to be talking about stress. And Dr. Lasalle, I just want to ask you, what is your definition of stress?
Well, it's not my definition of stress. Scholars and researchers have determined that stress is the body way of adapting and adjusting to environmental changes. And so environmental changes could mean anything that's outside of the normal experiences that you have. And so your body makes those adjustments to it, and it can be determined as stress.
Okay, give some examples, if possible, about how we manage stress.
How we manage stress?
Or, well, not really manage. How does stress affect our lives?
Stress affect our lives in a positive and a negative way. I mean, some stress can be good stress. Some anxiety can be good anxiety. So there's a situation where, you see something that's desirable, it changes your environment because now there's something of interest. And so you internalize some small anxiety, and then you decide on how you're going to plan and adjust based on this new factor that's entered your life. The challenge in the most problem situation is the long-term stress. Is when we begin to have long-term stressful events, and how that impacts us from an internal and external perspective as well.
Are there ways that we evaluate our stress, though?
Oh, absolutely. That determines how impactful the stress is. And so basically, scholars have determined that there's a primary and secondary way that we can analyze our stress. So basically, my perception, stress is a lot on perception. So my perception of one situation may be different than yours or any other person. And so the perception takes us into how severe the situation is, or the change in our environment, which causes us to either find it as a minor stressful situation or an extreme. But a lot of that is based on the way that we appraise the particular adjustment in our environment.
Use the word perception. Is why do people perceive certain stresses differently then?
That perception is so significant because perception is based on our background and our experiences. Some of it is genetics. If you have a genetic experience based on your parents and the genes that they gave you, then that impacts your perception in one way. And then also it's environmental. The things that you've experienced over life that alters and involves your perception of stressful situation. And so if you had maybe some traumatic experiences growing up, so for example, I had various traumatic experiences with animals and dogs. So anytime that I see any animal, my perception of the animal may be a lot heightened than somebody else who may have grown up with animals and dogs. So perception plays a huge role in assessing a stressful change or adaptation in your environment.
Is there a way that we can change our perception then of certain things? And even though we might have perceived this when we were 5, 6, 10 years old, is there a way we can change our perception, moving forward in life?
Absolutely. Researchers have concluded that something called primary and secondary appraisal. So a primary appraisal would be, okay, let me stop and reflect and really do a clear assessment on, is this pit bull really a danger to me or a threat to me? And if you consciously stop and reflect and say, you know what, this pit bull is not really a danger to me, everything is fine and you can move on. But we tend not to take the time out to consciously assess the situation well. So let's say hypothetically I do assess the situation and I realize that, regardless of my perception and my previous experiences, this still is a stressful situation. Then the next thing to do would be to go into what they call a secondary appraisal. Now that I've identified that this pit bull is a threat and I'm in a stressful situation, what are my actions? What is my plan to adjust and change the situation? Those things help us manage and adjust those stressful situations better. And so I might be able to take, based on my secondary appraisal, I might be able to take 1 or 2 actions that would alleviate the situation from being stressful at all. But if I don't do any of those things and I just react, then I escalate the stressful situation.
Okay, so now that we know what stress is and we know that we can appraise it, what are some ways that we can start to manage our stress? So to maybe bring down those stress hormones that we might have when we have heightened levels of stress. What are ways we can actually manage that?
Good. I'm glad you brought that up. There are various techniques that you can do, primarily exercising. The reality of it is that if you're breathing and you have some type of stress in your life, and so whether it's good stress or bad stress, the mere fact that you're living in life, you have road rage, you have challenges at work, you have challenges at school, maybe public places that you've gone to. Just recently I read an article in a journal, APA journal. It talked about African Americans particularly having high levels of stress due to racial discrimination. Well, not so much high level, but prolonged levels of stress due to discrimination. In some examples they gave, particularly going to the shopping mall and being followed, or seeing a police officer and being pulled over. So those type of long-term stressful situations tend to have an impact on our internally from a physical standpoint. And particularly the article in the journal stated that it even impact our life expectancy. But some things that you can do primarily is get yourself into appraising your stressful situation. The second thing that I would recommend is definitely exercise. Stress management is so significant. You're definitely going to have stress no matter how well you appraise it. You're just going to continue to have stress. The next thing that I recommend is good night's sleep. We really don't realize the impact of a good night's sleep, and that reflects our individual lifestyle. It reflects our individual personality, and even more significant is basically developing a great diet to it. A great diet, exercising, meditation is definitely significant, and developing a healthy appraisal situation of any adaptation in your environment, and determining if it is stress at all.
Well, Dr. Sal, I'm glad you came out and met with me today. Tell people, how can we reach you?
You can reach me at lasalleconsultants.com. Absolutely on Facebook, Twitter, Lasalle Consultants. If you have any particular questions, if you want to email me, you can email me at consultants with an S, lasalle@gmail.com.
All right, once again, thanks. My name is Stacey Megginson. I'm representing dynamictrainer.com. I really appreciate the comments anyone has in reference to this particular video. And you can reach me also at Dynamic Trainers, dynamic with the K.com. And remember, life is dynamic, but so are you.